Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is post-match reaction show time and, well, like buses, you wait almost 4 years for a home loss in the Premier League and suddenly two have come along at once. Liverpool have basically taken that loss against Burnley from 2 weeks ago, copied it and pasted it and put us all through the entire ordeal all over again after losing 1-0 at home to Brighton in a game that was a repeat of everything that has not been going well for Liverpool since the turn of the year and the couple of games that came before that as well. It felt like we'd turned a corner after those wins against West Ham and against Tottenham Hotspur. It's fair to say that those were very different games as well, teams that came at us and caused us problems. Brighton very much followed the template that has proved to be so effective against Liverpool recently, which is to sit in, which is to let us have the ball, to force us into playing slow, turgid football, becoming our own worst enemies, and then ultimately taking what chances you do get on the break and coming away with all 3 points. And credit to them, they executed that template perfectly. They knew what they had to do and they did it brilliantly. They do get a slice of fortune with the goal. Let's talk about that quickly before we get into the performance as a whole. It was an unfortunate one to concede, and one where you do kind of look at it and think, you know what, this is just not our year. The famous Liverpool saying of this is our year, this is our year. We've all kind of gone in reverse on that this time around and accepted that it's just not going our way. And that goal was yet another example of that. The way Phillips, he's at full stretch to try and clear it and he just about gets there. It then hits another Brighton player on the shin and then another Brighton player who happens to be flying in and swinging his leg in just the perfect way for that random double deflection of the ball to land on his boot and lash off it and into the back of the net. There's absolutely nothing Kevin Kelleher can do about it, because how the hell are you supposed to set yourself for a shot like that? You're not even expecting it to come at you, and it's annoying for him as well, because I felt like he had a really good game. Apart from that, he was confident in claiming crosses into the box, made some good saves that kept Liverpool in the game at crucial points as well. It's a shame we couldn't really capitalise on them in any way, but it was another good experience for Kevin Kelleher, put it that way. It's another good moment for him in the first team, and it'll help him going forward. It'll make him a better backup goalie for Liverpool, and generally what we saw tonight was encouraging. His work with the ball at his feet was great and he makes those good saves, so you can't really criticise him there. And in general, you can't really criticise anyone for the goal. I don't know what Nat Phillips is supposed to do. You wouldn't just want him to leave that cross. He has to try and play it, and he's at full stretch. That's the touch he gets, and that's just the way things have been going for Liverpool at the moment. But also at the other end, we really should have scored a goal. Obviously, we have so much of the ball. We have the ball so close to that goal for vast periods of the game, and we just never look like threatening. And it feels a little bit reductive to kind of reduce Liverpool's issues to one player. But it felt like we really needed Sadio Mane tonight, and we really needed Sadio Mane because A, he's brilliant, and B, because he's not Jurgen Shaqiri. And that's not a slight on Jurgen Shaqiri's quality or ability. We know he's a good footballer, but in terms of what he brings to the side, it just wasn't what we needed today. We needed someone who was going to be a little bit quicker, a little bit more direct, and Shaqiri wasn't aggressive enough like Sadio Mane is. He wasn't looking to play on the last man, get in behind. He was much more about trying to be a bit more creative and to create chances for Mo Salah and Roberto Firmino. But the thing is, they're those kind of players as well, especially when games are going like this. I've spoken about how when the going gets tough, sometimes Salah tries to do too much to be the creator and the goal scorer for Liverpool, whereas I'd much rather see him do what Mane sometimes does, which is play on the last defender and look to make runs in behind and get on the end of deadly through balls and stuff like that. But Salah today went back to playing a little bit deeper, trying to create chances. Firmino naturally does that because that's his unselfish nature, and that's what works in the Liverpool team normally when Salah and Mane are alongside him and when defenders haven't got 9 players in the box. And then Shaqiri is much more of a number 10. He wants to be in that kind of area, in the hole behind where a striker would normally be, a traditional number 9, doing little dink through balls and stuff like that, receiving the ball on the turn and keeping attacks going rather than finishing them off. So I just felt like Shaqiri wasn't the player that we needed on the pitch tonight. You can argue that maybe we could have done with someone like Minamino, who obviously is no longer available for us. Maybe someone like Origi, who was going to try and be a bit more direct, although you can point out to the fact that Origi came on in the game and was less than effective, maybe actually slowed things down for Liverpool and caused more problems than he solved. The fact of the matter is we were strung up a little bit by the lack of Sadio Mane, and the players that were on the pitch just weren't able to deliver either. And it was symptomatic of everyone. There's no individual player. You can't just blame Shaqiri. You can't just blame Salah for trying to do too much. Firmino's passing was wayward. Trent kind of settled back into the old rhythm that he has been struggling with this season, which is to just play on autopilot, get to the byline, attempt to whip a cross in, which is useless when Brighton have got the kind of players they had in the box. Crossing was never going to work for us, and it's almost unfair on people like Mo Salah to kind of expect them to do anything with that, to keep launching balls forward to him in the air when he's not even competing with a left back. Brighton are playing a back five, so Salah is on a centre half for the whole game, so it doesn't make sense to give the ball to him in the air because he's not battling with someone who's maybe 5'10" and a little bit more wiry and is built for pace rather than aerial duels or anything like that. He's up against a grok of a centre half who is going to be perfectly happy to deal with high looping balls into Mo Salah all day, and that's what I mean. We were our own worst enemies at times today. We played into Brighton's hands, and that's what's so frustrating about all of these games against low blocks. Too quickly we're panicking and bashing the endless cross button and just trying to do that as some way of breaking them down. What I liked about those games against Spurs and West Ham was we looked like a second half team, a team that works the opponent out, doesn't panic too early, gradually gets a sense of what they need to do to succeed and create chances and get goals, and then eventually does get those goals, manages to strike gold and work out the system that will beat the opposition. We very carefully worked out how to get through Spurs' defence. The same with the West Ham match. And today, we just settle back into the old habit far too quickly, and it's clear now that it doesn't work. You can't just give the ball to Trent, give the ball to Andrew Robertson, expect them to whip it in and hope that it ends up in a goal, or give Salah the ball with his back to goal, ball to feet, with three defenders around him and expect him to turn into Lionel Messi 2.0, better than Messi, and dribble past all of them and bend the ball into the top corner. It's not going to happen. We've seen that it's not going to happen, and yet we just keep doing it. And it comes down to a wider point, I think, that is almost a little bit beyond Liverpool's control, which is that in a season like this, when the fixtures are so congested, you just can't play the way Liverpool have been playing over the last few seasons. And it's why we've settled into a similar rhythm that we had in the early stages under Jurgen Klopp, where we still had a similar template, a similar idea of how to play. And when it did work and when we saw it in action, it was absolutely brilliant. The germs of the Liverpool side that went on to win the European Cup and win the Premier League and get 99 points and be absolutely incredible, those germs were visible very, very early on. Within the first season, it was clear what the template was and how the side could play and succeed. But they couldn't do it regularly because of, and I think it is almost this simple, fitness. The players just aren't fit to play that kind of style for the whole 90 minutes every single week. And it's why, as Liverpool got more successful, we started to see more games where they were getting late goals, winning matches late on, turning them around late on, last minute equalisers and stuff like that, because they had the fitness to just keep going, to keep playing the Jurgen Klopp way for the full 90 minutes in a way that opposition players just couldn't deal with. They could deal with it for a half, the intense pressure, and then expect Liverpool to drop off later on in the game. They could deal with a last 15-minute barrage of crosses into the box and stuff like that. But when it goes for the whole match, every single match, you just will wear opposition players down every time, and it's why we were so remarkably consistent for those two seasons, the 97-point season and the 99-point season, why we were able to pretty much win every single week, because when you've got a template like that, where you just wear the opposition down through attritional football, and there's no other Premier League team that is equipped to play at that level for 90 minutes, then by and large, barring the odd aberrational result, it's going to work out for you. And the issue Liverpool have now is that when you suddenly take a month out of the season and squash all the fixtures much closer together, it simply becomes impossible. And then it becomes a vicious cycle because you start getting injuries because players are much closer to their red zone on a more frequent basis. Because the thing is, we couldn't have really anticipated this. We still carried on playing the same way. We went into the season with the same template that we've gone into any other season because it's worked. But it became clear as the seasons progressed that it wasn't going to work this time around, that injuries were going to be picked up. And then, like I said, vicious circle. We have to start throwing in players that maybe aren't as good as the lads who've been taken out. Reece Williams for Virgil van Dijk, Nat Phillips for Joe Gomez, and then those players aren't able to rotate as well. Fabinho's been pushed through brick wall after brick wall because we can't afford to rotate him out the side at any point in the season, so he's just had to play whenever he is available. Then they become more likely to pick up injuries, and when they're on the pitch, they're not at 100%. They can't play the Jurgen Klopp Liverpool way for an entire 90 minutes. And that's what I mean. So when we try and break down Brighton, we can do a 15-minute spell where we really look to put the pressure on. We can maybe for the last half an hour attempt a bit more of a barrage if we feel like we need to force the issue more, but we can't do it for the whole game. And that makes it so much easier for opposition teams to deal with. And I think that is why we have regressed into what we saw in the early stages under Jurgen Klopp, where we have a great idea of how we can win the football match, but the players just aren't equipped to do it every single time. Sometimes they can, and maybe against Man City at the weekend, the players will be able to go to the well and find that extra 10 or 15% or whatever it is to blitz Man City and get the result over the line. But to expect them to do it every single 3 games, every single 3 days, when there's no available opportunity for rotation either. You can't just say, oh, well, push yourself through a wall for 4 games in a week and a half, and then you can have a rest in this one, and then you'll be back to your previous level. They just have to keep going, and it's now starting to show that I don't think the players are capable of doing it. And Man City had a similar problem earlier on in the season. They had a dodgy patch earlier than we did, where they were drawing with West Ham, drawing with Leeds, getting battered at home by Leicester, and they changed the way they play. They're a different team now. They are more defensive. They don't look to score 5 goals. They look to get goals, still with the same playing patterns, but in more concentrated bursts. And then they sit on those leads a bit more. They pass the opposition to death in a way that Liverpool have shown they can do. They've passed themselves to death over the last few games. We've seen how long they can keep the ball for without the opposition getting a sniff of it. The problem is, we're doing that when it's at 0-0 or we're 1-0 down, which is absolutely no good. If you can do that when you're 2-0 up, it's absolutely brilliant. And that's what City have been doing. So we clearly need to look at the template they've been using of taking what you know works for you, but adapting it for the current circumstances where you acknowledge you're not going to be able to be the perfect version of yourselves. City haven't been the perfect football vision that Pep Guardiola has had for all of his squads this season. He's had to acknowledge that and adapt. And I think Jurgen Klopp has to realise that as well. I don't know if it's quite sunk in yet, but hopefully it does soon, that we need to change our style of play. And I don't know exactly what that entails. It's a difficult one to work out. That's why he is the manager and I am here in my room talking to a camera about it. But it seemed like we maybe had the germ of it with someone like Origi coming in. Obviously, he's not as good a footballer as Mane, Salah or Firmino, but he is something different. He's more direct. He's more of a natural striker. He's a different option from what Liverpool have been trying to do and failing to succeed with so far this season. So I think there are options there. Similar with bringing Shaqiri in, and I don't mind Jurgen Klopp experimenting there. It hasn't really worked out. We've seen good moments and bad moments under Jurgen Shaqiri, but he's not really been consistent enough in terms of what he delivers for the team, in terms of his end product specifically. But it's been good to see something shaking it up. So Jurgen Klopp trying something else to work out exactly how we can approach the rest of the season, because if we're being honest, in terms of the rest of the season, the title race, yes, if we beat Man City, then I think the gap goes back to 7 points. It would be 7 points, I think, with if they win their game in hand. Obviously, if we lose against Man City, 13 points should they win their game in hand. So it's completely over there. Even if we beat them, it's still going to be an uphill struggle to win the title. But the main thing now, I think, really, is getting through what has been an absolute slog of a season for Liverpool. We all know that. It's difficult to expect a title or any silverware when you've had the problems you've had, but what we have to make sure of is that it has no knock-on effect for next season, that we are still in the Champions League, that there are still the signs that future success will come in order to attract signings. And let's not forget, we've also got a European Cup run to come, and that will hopefully give us all something that we can enjoy as well. You know, it would be nice to see Liverpool go a little bit far in that competition, potentially even get all the way to the final would be absolutely fantastic. But the main thing now, I think, is, and we just have to accept it really, getting through the season, because you can't really expect a team that has been pushed through brick wall after brick wall, that has suffered so many injuries to so many key players, to come away and play perfect every game and win. Obviously, it's annoying to lose games. I'm not happy about the result today. But it feels a bit harsh after we've been criticising the players so much over the last few weeks with the results that they've been getting, to lay into them again. And I think we all do have to accept that we shouldn't be up in arms, we shouldn't be going into ridiculous hysteria, and we have to understand that this season is a season like any other, as it's been said before, and therefore it's maybe not such a bad thing that Liverpool will, hopefully, fingers crossed, finish third or fourth or second, but maybe not win the league this time around. So that is all for today's video. Obviously there's so much to play for, so don't get your heads down just yet. A lot can change in just a couple of weeks in this season, as we've seen with our own club. So anything could happen, but in the meantime, don't be tearing your hair out. Don't be crying your eyes out because Liverpool aren't doing well. Just try and still enjoy the fact that we get to watch what is still a pretty good Liverpool team. So that is all today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, as always, you know what to do. Hit the like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LSU Focus TV on Twitter. And I'll be back soon for the pre-match content for that massive game against City. Until then, bye for now.